Hare Krishna everyone, we're continuing to read The Science of Self-Realization, the book by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhakti-Vedanta Swami Prabhupada, Chapter 6, Finding Spiritual Solutions to Material Problems, and this section is entitled The Tiny World of Modern Science. Karandhara Dasa. They say there is no need for God, because if you mix two chemicals together, Srila Prabhupada, God or not, there must be some will. There must be some consciousness. Two chemicals mix and produce such and such. Who mixes them? Consciousness is there. Well, that consciousness is Krishna. There is consciousness everywhere. And as soon as you accept that consciousness, you must accept consciousness as a person. Therefore, we speak of Krishna consciousness. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is stated that consciousness is all-pervading. You may have consciousness, and I may have consciousness, but there is another consciousness, which is all-pervading. My consciousness is limited to my body, and your consciousness is limited to yours. But there is another consciousness which is within you, me, and everyone. That is Krishna consciousness. Actually, everything in the world is relative. That is a scientific fact. To us, an ant may seem to have a very short life, but for the ant, his life is about 100 years in duration. That 100 years is relative to the body. Similarly, Brahma, who lives fantastically long from our point of view, only lives 100 years from his point of view. This is relativity. Karandhara Dasa. Then the relativity is based upon our individual situation. Srila Prabhupada. Yes. Therefore, it is said that what is food for one is poison for another. People are thinking that because they cannot survive on the moon, no other living entities can. Everyone thinks of things in a relative way, in his own terms. This is the meaning of frog philosophy. The frog is always thinking of things in relation to his will. He has no power to conceive of the Atlantic Ocean because his will is his only experience. God is great, but we are thinking of God's greatness in our own terms, in terms of relative greatness. Some insects are born at night. They grow at night, have their children at night, and die at night. They never see the sun. Therefore, they could conclude there is no such a thing as day. If you asked the insect about the morning, he would say, there cannot be any morning. Similarly, when people hear of Brahma's long duration of life from the scriptures, they do not believe it. They say, how can anyone live for such a long time? In the Bhagavad Gita 8.17, Krishna states, Sahasrayugas paryantam aharyad brahmano vidu ratrim yuga sahasrantam tehoratra vido jana. Quote, by human calculations, 1,000 ages taken together is the duration of Brahma's one day, and such also is the duration of his night. Unquote. Thus, Brahma, by these calculations, lives for So many millions and trillions of years. We cannot believe this, although evidence is given in the scriptures. In other words, we conclude that Krishna talks nonsensically while we speak as authorities. Even great scholars say that these scriptural statements are all mental speculations. Although these men are nothing but rascals, they pass for reputable scholars. They place themselves above God's position by attempting to refute or deny the statements of God in the revealed scriptures. In this way, so many fools in the guise of scholars, scientists, and philosophers are misguiding the whole world. Dr. Singh: of course, so much is being written about Darwin's theory. In any library, there are hundreds of books on his theories. Srila Prabhupada: do they accept or reject them? Dr. Singh: generally they accept him, but there are some who are very critical. Srila Prabhupada: Darwin speaks about the evolution of the species of life, but he has no real information about spiritual evolution. He knows nothing about the progress of the spirit soul from lower forms of life to higher forms. He claims that man has evolved from monkeys, but we can see that the monkey is not extinct. If the monkey is the immediate forefather of man, why is the monkey still existing? Dr. Singh: Darwin says that the species are not created independently, but are dependent from one another. Srila Prabhupada: if there is no question of independence, how can he abruptly begin with a certain species? He must explain how the original species came into existence. Karandhara Dasa: scientists claim that the earth was created by biological chemistry, and they refuse to teach that God created the earth because they think everyone will consider them fools. Srila Prabhupada: if their biology and chemistry are so advanced, why don't they create something? They claim they may be able to create life in the future, but why in the future? Life is already created. Is science based on the future? We should trust no future, however pleasant we may think it will be. Everyone is thinking the future will be very pleasant, but what assurance do we have of this? They have to accept that they do not know what the truth actually is. They cannot even produce a spear of grass through their biological or chemical experiments. Nonetheless, they are claiming that the creation is produced by some chemical or biological method. Why does no one question all this nonsense? Dr. Singh: in the ultimate analysis, when they consider the origin of life, they say that everything started from matter. In other words, living matter comes from non-living matter. Srila Prabhupada: from where is this living matter coming from? Did it come from non-living matter in the past and not at the present? How is the ant coming? Is it materializing from dirt? Even an ant does not come from inert matter. What proof do they have of such a theory? Darwin claims that in the distant past, no really intelligent man existed, that man simply evolved from the apes. If there was no intelligent brain in the past? How is it that these Vedic scriptures were written thousands and thousands of years ago? How do they explain a sage like Vyasadeva? Dr. Singh: they have no explanation. They simply say these are unknown forest sages. Srila Prabhupada: Vyasadeva may be unknown to them, but nonetheless he was there. How is it he got such a brain? He may be unknown to you or me, but nonetheless his brain work is there, his philosophy is there, his language, linguistics, poetic arrangements, and verbal strength. You may not know the person, but you can understand the brain. Dr. Singh: weren't all the varieties of animals existing from the beginning? Srila Prabhupada: yes. Simultaneous creation is verified by the Bhagavad Gita. All the varieties of animals and man, as well as demigods, were existing from the beginning. A living entity wants a certain type of body, and Krishna gives it to him. Because he desires things in a certain way, he associates with certain qualities of nature in matter. According to his qualification, to his association, he receives a particular type of body. The psychological forces, the mind, thinking, feeling, and willing, determine the particular type of situation and body the living entity receives. The evolutionary process is there, but it is not an evolution of species. It is not that one species of life develops from another, for, as Krishna states, avyakta dvyaktayah sarva prabhavantyah ragame ratriagame praliyante tatraiva vyakta samgyake. Quote: when Brahma's day is manifest, this multitude of living entities comes into being, and at the arrival of Brahma's night, they are all annihilated. The evolution of the spiritual evolution of the living entity, individual living entity, through the various species of life. If one enters into the body of a fish, he has to undergo the evolutionary process step by step. If one is on the top of the stairs and somehow falls down, he again has to go up the evolutionary staircase step by step. Of course, the scientists are busy making so much research that they cannot understand this. If you tell them they're going to be trees in their next life, they think you're speaking nonsense. After all, what can we learn by research? When the cause of all causes is known, then everything knowable becomes known, and nothing remains unknown. As the Vedas state, Yasmin vigyate sarvam evam vigyatam bhavati. Mundaka Upanishad 1.3. If we know the absolute truth, all other truths become known. But if we don't know the absolute truth, we are in ignorance. One may not be an official scientist or philosopher, but he may challenge anyone and talk boldly if he only knows one thing: Krishna. This contemporary civilization is so proud of its independence, but actually it is so much dependent on oil. If the oil supply is stopped, then what will these rascal scientists do? They cannot do anything. Let them try to manufacture oil in their test tubes, enough oil to run their civilization on. At present, there is a scarcity of water in India. What can the scientists do about this? They may know the chemical composition of water, but they cannot produce it when there is a great scarcity. They require the help of clouds, and all that is God's manipulation. Actually, they cannot do anything. They have gone to the moon, but for all their labor, they have simply taken away some dust and rocks. The rascal government exacts taxes and spends money unnecessarily. This is their intelligence. It is a state of asses, that's all. The politicians have no sympathy or compassion. They do not consider that the hard-earned money is coming from the public, and that they are spending it by shooting big rockets off to other planets. All they do is promise to bring back some dust, more dust. First, they may get a handful of dust, then they promise to bring back tons of dust. What is the meaning of all this? Karandhara Dasa. They believe that there may be life on Mars. Srila Prabhupada. They may believe or not believe. What is the gain? What we do know is that life is here. They know this, yet they are engaged in fighting and in killing life. Here is life. Here is a human being. Life is here undoubtedly. But they are busy trying to destroy it with their big bombs. This is their scientific advancement. Dr. Singh. They are very curious to know what is going on other planets. Srila Prabhupada. That means that for their childish curiosity, they are spending so much money. They can spend so much to satisfy their curiosity, but when so many poverty-stricken countries ask them for help, they say there is no money. They are very proud to go to the moon, but why don't they take information how to go to Krishna's Galoka Vrindavan? If they go there, all their curiosity will be satisfied. They will learn that beyond this inferior energy, there is indeed a superior spiritual energy. This material energy cannot work independently. The spiritual energy has to join it. Material elements are not created of themselves. It is the soul that is creative. We may try to make something with matter, but matter does not create itself. Hydrogen and oxygen will come in contact only when moved by the superior energy. Only fools can expect the entire cosmic manifestation, which is only matter, to come into being automatically. We may have a nice car, but if there is no driver, what is its use? Unless a man knows how to work a machine, unless a man pushes a button, the machine does not work. Similarly, without the superior energy, the material energy cannot act. Behind this wonderful cosmic manifestation is the direction of a superior energy. All this information is given in the scriptures, but still people will not believe it. Actually, everything is God's property, but people are claiming this property to be theirs or their country's. Now they're talking about the problem of overpopulation, but the fact is that God has supplied enough. Actually, there is enough land and enough food if it is properly used. People are artificially creating problems, and the scientists are helping them by giving them so many destructive devices. They simply encourage the rascals and rogues who are trying to use up God's property. If you help a murderer or a thief, you also become a criminal. Is that not so? There is so much trouble in the world because the scientists are helping all these thieves and rogues. Thus they're all criminals. Stena eva saha. Bhagavad Gita 3.12. One who does not recognize the proprietorship of the Supreme Lord is a thief. Our mission is to bring these rascals to their senses. Now, one must find out the means to do this. The rascals are suffering, but because they are sons of God, they should not suffer. They do not know that there is God or that there is happiness. They know nothing of bliss or of eternal life. They are carrying on so much research and living for 50, 60 or 70 years. After that, they do not know what is going to happen. They have no knowledge that life is eternal. Actually, their position is like that of an animal. An animal does not know what is after death, nor does he actually contemplate death. He does not know why is he here, nor does he know the value of life. Under the influence of Maya, the animal simply goes on eating, sleeping, defending, mating, and dying. That's all. People are endeavoring so hard, but for what purpose? They say that they are struggling so hard to make provisions for the next generation. But what are the provisions for? They cannot reply to that. This Krishna consciousness movement is meant to give real purpose of life by establishing Krishna, God, as the center of everything. It is therefore to the scientists' benefit to understand this important movement. Jai. We have completed chapter 6 and tomorrow we shall begin chapter 7 entitled Exploring the Spiritual Frontier. Thank you so much for tuning in today. The link to this book is in the description. Check out our website shravanamdiaries.com and we shall see you tomorrow. Hare Krishna.